So this is your second of 2 presentations looking at what you need to do over the summer to get yourself ready for Year 13. And this one is going to be centred around AO1, which is your knowledge and understanding. It is also to do with how well you write, but obviously that will come later. I'm starting with what the exam paper actually asks you to do. There are 3 sections. It's 3 hours long, this exam. It's a bit of a killer. And in this, the first section will be something that is unseen. So it will be an extract from a text that's deemed a piece of political or social protest writing, and you have to apply all of the skills and all of the knowledge that you've learned with the text that we've studied in class in order to approach this and to analyse this extract. This is partly why we've asked you to do that big timeline in the other presentation, quite simply because you could have an extract from any time period. So we need you to be a little bit historically aware and socially aware of what's been happening at different ages in history, because then when you get a text that maybe is from 1753, for example, then you in your head can think, actually, that makes sense. I kind of know a little bit what was happening then. So that's partly why we've asked you to do the first set of tasks. The other 2 questions on the exam paper are based around the 3 texts that you are studying. There'll be one question which is a debate in which you'll write about one of the texts, you choose which one. And the second question is more of a to explore the significance question, and this will ask you to connect the 2 other texts that you haven't already written about. So in that way, it's quite similar to paper 1, where you'll do a question, an extract question on Othello. Here you have the unseen. Section B is a debate about Othello. Here you have a debate about the text that you've studied and you pick the one that you would like to write about. And then finally you have an explore the significance. You're writing about 2 texts, just as you're writing about Keats and Death of a Salesman in the tragedy paper. The difference between the 2 exams, obviously the genre is one of them, but with this exam actually you will have your texts in the exam with you. We provide you with clean copies for the exam, so we ask you to buy your own copies to work on and to annotate in class. So that's like your working revision text, and then we give you a clean one for the exam to take in with you, which again is really helpful. Now, depending upon what your class you're in, you do slightly different text choices. So if you're with me and Miss Smith or me and Miss Richardson, our 3 text choices are The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini, you'll study a selection of poems by Tony Harrison, and you'll study A Doll's House by Henry Ibsen. If you're in Mr. Bland or Miss Dargis' class, The Kite Runner and The Doll's House are what we all have in common. However, the poetry you'll be studying is Songs of Innocence and Experience by William Blake. So this brings me to the first task for AO1, and this is knowing the text incredibly well. There is no way of bypassing this, and the exam board talk about how you have to be absolutely masters of your knowledge of your text. So we need you over the summer to get buying, please. The Kite Runner and A Doll's House are the 2 texts we're asking you to buy. The poetry collections are provided for you, so you need to source these. These are the 2. This is what it looks like, and particularly for the Ibsen one, it's really important you buy the edition, the blue through one that looks like this, because it's a text in translation and not all translations are the same. So when you are buying, make sure you're buying the right versions. I've also put the study guides that are accompanying it. Sometimes people like to buy these as well, and these are the ones that are most helpful for the genre focus that we're doing. Don't just buy them, however. It is absolutely vital that by September you have read The Kite Runner. It's an amazing text. It's one that absolutely breaks my heart, and I'll defy you not to cry at certain moments. There was one moment in particular, I remember reading it for the very first time, and my husband had been out playing football, and he came back in, and I'd just read this most powerful section, and I was utterly distraught. And he honestly believed there'd been a death in the family because this book had moved me so much. So I defy you not to have, not to cry reading this. Prepare yourself for it. It's quite a harrowing read, but such a brilliant book. We'd also like you to watch A Doll's House, and I've given you the link for Digital Theatre Plus, so you can watch that on there free of charge. You've got the login details, and again there is more than one version on there, so I've given a little picture of the one that you need to be looking for on Digital Theatre, and that's the one to watch. This is much more light-hearted, much more of a comedy, but still incredibly serious and incredibly powerful, but it's a nice counterbalance to The Kite Runner, which is, as I say, fairly heartbreaking, and deals with some really quite challenging issues and concepts. So absolutely vital that the book is read before September and you've had a watch of the play, so that we can really hit the ground running when we start in September. After you've read it and watched, there are 2 other tasks that I would like you to be doing, and this is just to kind of really do your first gut reaction. These texts we are studying because they're part of a genre of political and social protest writing. So why do you think the exam board have picked them for us to study? What ideas and what issues do you think these texts are presenting? There is a brilliant image here on the slide as well to help you answer the questions, and I've just noticed a typo as I'm speaking this out to you, so I apologise for that. I'm obviously not going to correct it now, but I have noticed that it's there, so I'm really sorry that it is. But anyway, going back to the image that is on the screen for you, it will take you through some of the things that you might want to write about in your response to why the Kite Runner and why the Doll's House is actually on this syllabus for us. Not all of them are relevant to the particular text that we're doing, but certainly will help you form your answer. I want that answer to be short, however, 150 to 200 words. So you might want to bullet point your ideas. It doesn't have to be in perfect prose, but just want to start you to be engaging with the key ideas. And again, if you want to print off this slide with this elements of political and social protest fiction image, I think that'd be a really good one for your files. Really helpful questions for you to be always considering. Finally, the other thing that we're going to ask you to do over the summer, we really hope that you will enjoy one of your modules. As you know, one of the exam questions is an unseen text, and so actually we would like you to have a really broad knowledge of lots of different things that are happening in the genre, not just the text that we study in class. And to help you to do this, I want you to watch some really fabulous films and enjoy watching and broadening your social and political understanding over the course of the summer holidays. Mr. Bell, Miss Richardson, Dr. Burrow and myself, we've both picked 4 films or box sets that we think are absolutely essential viewing, not just because they're brilliant and not just because they work within the genre, but actually I think they'll make you better people by watching them and thinking about the issues that are being presented to you, and by putting yourself in the shoes of some of these characters and to understand what their lives have been like, and get you to kind of reflect on, well, what is this saying about society? So here are Mr. Bell's recommendations. You might have seen some of those yourself. Again, there's just a brief summary which might tap into you. I think that if you're a class that's doing Harrison, Brastoff and kind of any film that deals with the Thatcher period is a really great one for you to deal with. McCarthyism, that ties in with the time period Arthur Miller was writing in, actually, for Death of a Salesman. And you might be interested in that as well. Certainly stuff to do with race, which is prevalent at the moment, Get Out is a great one for you there. And then, Hunger Strikes and IRA, and what makes somebody a terrorist or a freedom fighter? There's some really interesting questions being posed about that. Miss Richardson's selection are here. Again, Billy Elliot is kind of set in Thatcher's Britain. So again, if you are studying Harrison, you might want to watch that. Apparently Mr. Sherlock's an extra in it as well, so you might want to spot him as well. And then we have the women's social movement, we have gay rights in the other 2 films being addressed. So really eclectic and different mix here, definitely worth tapping into some of it. Here's my selection: 3 American, 1 British. Daniel Blake is set in the northeast as well, so that might really resonate for some of you. But again, 4 really powerful, incredibly moving films, definitely worth watching. I hope you do pick one of these. And then finally, Dr. Burrow, her recommendations. House of Cards, there is an American version of this, but this might have been taken off because it has Kevin Spacey in, and he was kind of exposed during the #MeToo movement, so I don't know whether that is something that you can watch. But the British version is incredible and really looks at kind of political machinations. A really great one to watch for this unit. The Crown as a box set, just in terms of introducing you really to British history, particularly recent British history. There's so much I didn't know, but everything that's kind of shaped how we are today is explored here. King Charles I is a brilliant piece. It's imagining what happens after our current monarch dies and then Prince Charles gets the throne, and that's really interesting, looking at the tensions in there. I also like the fact that when it was originally out, loads of Tory politicians were furious about representations in it, so it's worth watching for that alone. And then if you're wanting something a little different, and we're going to go back in time, Shakespeare's history plays are amazing for social political protest writing. Henry IV Part 1 is actually on the specification, although we don't study it. But looking at notions of kingship and power and how to challenge that, really, really impressive performances. I would definitely recommend these as well. So there are 16 things that you could watch over the summer to kind of broaden your knowledge of history, of society, of reform, of challenges and threats to existing systems and structures, all of which will absolutely root you in the genre and give you a broader understanding of it. And remember, it's vital, because one of your questions is going to be something you've never seen before. So the more you understand the genre and the more that you've seen and read different things within it, the easier that question is going to be. So just enjoy watching and come back in September and tell us what you watched and what you thought about. So plenty of things for you to be getting on with. To go back to the first presentation, you've got your huge political timeline, and then over the top of that you're going to put the literary movements and how things have changed. You've also got the key terminology to get to grips with and to unpick and to understand. And then from this presentation, enjoy reading, enjoy watching. So there's the Kite Runner. Let's get our first read of that done during the summer holidays, and that gives us time to then dip into it in class and do lots of rereading in preparation for that summer exam. You've got watching of A Doll's House again, so you get that knowledge, that text knowledge behind you and under your belt before we get started. And then let's broaden our knowledge. Cultural capital is a key term within education. That's what makes students successful. The more you know, the more then you can make sense of new things that you're learning all of the time. So let's know this genre, let's watch things, really enjoyable things within the genre to broaden our understanding. I hope you enjoy and look forward to seeing you all back in September.